Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but she will be back later today. We're going to talk about the Restrict Act. A lot of people asking me why we haven't covered it yet. And I'm like, well, I kind of did in a roundabout way. I actually mentioned having watched the hearing, the 5-hour TikTok hearing. I watched about an hour and a half of it. I said I had concerns in that video, and a lot of people dogpiled me. They said, hey, you're overreacting. TikTok needs to be banned. And I do believe that TikTok has some legitimate security concerns. And but my problem with the hearing was it sounded like a bunch of boomers trying to justify more censorship of the internet overall. That was my big takeaway from it. If you actually listen to the language and people tell you who they are, and you actually listen to what they're saying, they are addressing security concerns about TikTok, but they were spending an awful lot of time obsessing about the content on TikTok and whether or not the kids were safe from TikTok. And really it became more about keeping kids safe from the internet, from content on the internet. And now we have a better understanding of where they were going with this. This is called the Restrict Act, which a lot of people are comparing to the Patriot Act, which basically means the government, our government, the US government, can spy on you, can punish you, like they do in China, except when we do it, it's totally cool, right? But China does it, not so cool. This could be catastrophic for the internet because everybody talks about freedom of speech. And, this has been a discussion that's been coming up a lot lately with the internet. And I don't think you understand that if this goes through, this version of the bill goes through, it's a Faustian deal. Like, yeah, we might get rid of TikTok, but we're also going to give up so much more liberty. We're going to give up our freedom of speech. We're going to give up our privacy. And that's what the government wants. That's what the US government wants. I'm not a fan of government overreach in any form. I don't care what side of the aisle it comes from. And frankly, this is both parties working together to try to limit our free speech on the internet. And it's potentially a very dangerous thing. I don't think people fully understand that the TikTok ban is a Trojan horse. And this happens a lot. I literally worked at a company that developed software for the government. And our primary job was to deal with the government regulations and all the bills and the laws that were getting proposed and all of that, and then translate that into plain English for the government employees who didn't understand the way it was written. And there are so many riders, there's so many things snuck into bills that have nothing to do with the bill. Oh, we're going to ban TikTok. And also we're going to curtail free speech for everybody. And we could even fine you if you use a VPN. That's troubling, isn't it? That's a little troubling. So we're gonna talk about all this stuff in a very special episode of Clownfish TV. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Almost 300,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. It's stuff like this, which is why I'm kind of looking at going back to my own website and trying to do more with that than I am on Twitter or any of these other social media platforms. And if, look, push comes to shove, we technically can host Clownfish videos over on clownshishtv.com. And just a heads up, by the way, since we're talking about clownshishtv.com, I did post our publishing schedule, our crowdfunding schedule out there. We are going to do several projects this year, including this one, which was actually going to be a webcomic, and now it's going to be a book. We're going to kill some trees because we don't want it on the internet because it could get snapped away, right? But lots of stuff coming. We have our role-playing game coming, hopefully next year, Adventure Engine. So we have a lot of exciting stuff going on. And again, I'm trying to build this up on Clownfish TV because it does seem like social media is going to be policed more. And I don't know where things are going to go. And I kind of like late 2000s internet, from the late 90s through the late 2000s, where everybody just kind of had their own space on the internet and we didn't have to worry about this stuff so much. But here it is, guys. So this is coming from Reason Magazine. Could the Restrict Act criminalize the use of VPNs? Plus, states consider mandatory anti-porn filters, tariffs, Tariffs to create baby formula shortages and more. What? Would the Restrict Act, aka the TikTok ban bill, criminalize the use of VPNs? That's the rumor floating around about the legislation, which was introduced in the Senate by a Democrat, Mark Warner, earlier this month. Warner's office has said his bill wouldn't do that, but its broad language leaves room for doubt. And the act is still insanely far-reaching and could have a huge range of deleterious effects, even if it doesn't criminalize people using a VPN to access TikTok. They talk about virtual private network, which we actually have promoted some. We're going to be promoting another one here pretty soon. For this reason, VPNs are popular in countries that exercise authoritarian control over what their citizens can access online because you can do an end run around it. It's sad that this contingent could soon include U.S. citizens, but include us it does as both Republicans and Democrats get more and more gung-ho about banning the popular video platform TikTok. Again, I don't think this was ever really about banning TikTok. I think this was always a Trojan horse to allow the government to censor the internet, to clean up the internet, to control the internet, just like China does, just like China. Josh Hawley, a Republican, introduced one TikTok ban bill back in January. Hawley's bill would direct the president to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to specifically block and prohibit all transactions and to prevent commercial operation of TikTok parent company ByteDance in the U.S. The latest legislation is more extensive and even more invasive. Again, this is coming from a Democrat. Warner's restricting the Emergency of Security Threats that Risk Information and Communications Technology Act, or the Restrict Act, doesn't specifically mention TikTok or ByteDance. Rather, it would grant the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the broad power to identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person or with respect to any property that the secretary determines to pose an undue or unacceptable risk in several different areas. These include federal elections, information and communications technology products and services, and critical infrastructure or digital economy, as well as coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to undermine democratic processes and institutions or steer policy and regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objective of a foreign adversary to the detriment of the national security of the United States. Elections, of course. The language describing who the Restrict Act applies to is confusing at best. The Commerce Secretary would be authorized to take steps to address risks posed by any covered transaction by any person, right? So what counts as a covered transaction? The bill states that this means a transaction in which an entity described in subparagraph B has any interest. Entities described in subparagraph B are a foreign adversary, an entity subject to the jurisdiction of or organized under the laws of a foreign adversary, an entity owned, directed, or controlled by either of these. Foreign adversaries can be any foreign government or regime that the Secretary deems a national security threat. It's a bit gobbledygooked because, again, these people, I watched this trial. I watched it about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours of this trial. It's a bunch of boomers trying to make sense of the internet. Well, it's bad for the kids. It's making the kid. Like, look, I do agree that there are security risks with TikTok, but again, this goes above and beyond TikTok. This was always the end game, in my opinion. This was always the end game to control the internet completely. So here's the gobbledygook. It could be read to imply that any person using a VPN to access an app controlled by a foreign adversary or its alleged minions is subject to the Secretary's ire. Hence, anyone using a VPN to access TikTok would be in trouble, specifically subject up to $1 million fine, 20 years in prison, or both. Warner's office says this isn't so. Spokesperson Rachel Cohen told Newsweek that the provisions only apply when someone is engaged in sabotage or subversion of communications technology in the U.S., causing catastrophic effects on U.S. critical infrastructure, or interfering in or altering the result of a federal election in order for criminal penalties to apply. So if you were, just hypothetically speaking, using a VPN to access like an election denier website or something, would that apply to it? Or a site that's covering that? I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of nebulous. The Restrict Act targets companies like TikTok, not individual users. It's somewhat reassuring that at least Warner doesn't intend the bill's criminal provisions to apply to U.S. citizens using VPNs, but the verboten activities it lists are actually broader than those that Cohen mentions to Newsweek. And because the language of the bill is so expansive, it seems hard to rule out it ever being used in this way. Again, this is what the government does. They sneak things in, they get it passed as a law, and then they abuse the law to control the citizens. We have seen this time and time and time again. And why did you think this was going to be any different? I knew as soon as they're like, oh, we're going to ban TikTok. I'm like, you're setting a very dangerous precedent. You're going to ban an entire social media platform. And it's a matter of time until they're like, Elon Musk is dangerous and he's harboring a bunch of election deniers on his platform. Let's just shut Twitter down too while we're at it. It sounds crazy, but welcome to 2023. We've seen many times the way federal laws are sold as attacks on big baddies like terrorists and drug kingpins, yet wind up being used to attack people engaged in much more minor activities. Remember when grandma was getting sued for her grandson downloading Metallica or whatever on Napster? Besides, the Restrict Act doesn't actually just state that no person may engage in any conduct prohibited by or contrary to its provisions. It also says no person may cause or aid, abet, counsel, command, induce, procure, permit, or approve the doing of any act prohibited by. Again, if you're posting blog posts denying an election, a federal election results, would this cover you too? And then they're gonna fine you $1 million if you're using a VPN to post those blog posts. I mean, who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? Approve the doing of any act prohibited by or the omission of any act required by any legislation, order, direction, mitigation, measure, prohibition, or other authorization or directive measure by another act. In addition, no person may solicit or attempt a violation, and no person may engage in any transaction or take any other action with intent to evade the provisions of the act. The language leaves even more room for the Restrict Act to touch a wide range of activities. Perhaps a court would ultimately deem it unusable against individuals merely trying to evade a TikTok ban, but that doesn't mean prosecutors won't try, nor the authorities wouldn't use invasive surveillance measures to try and detect such evasion. Yeah, there was talk of, and I'll go out to Twitter, but there was talk of them even like commandeering your Ring, using your smart home devices to spy on you. They probably do already, honestly. That's why we don't have an Amazon or a Google in our house. Even if the law would never be used to attack citizens for merely using VPNs, it's a deeply worrying piece of legislation that would give the government broad authority to restrict or ban all sorts of businesses and communication tools, so long as they're tangentially related to any country it decides is an adversary. It would give law enforcement wide leeway to punish a range of people involved in the provision or dissemination of any services from these entities. It would grant authorities sweeping new powers to go after a huge range of economic and expressive activity and limit Americans' access to a wide range of tools, services, and products. You will not be allowed to criticize the government. I guarantee it. And doesn't this sound like China? Doesn't this sound like Russia? You would not be allowed to criticize the government or government officials on the internet without there being some kind of repercussion. And then what's next? The social credit score? Well, we basically have that already, don't we? It's called social media. If you're not getting canceled, your credit score is okay. If you get canceled, your credit score is in the shitter. Robbie Soave asked yesterday, can we really expect the veritable army of federal bureaucrats obsessed with policing speech on social media platforms to narrowly utilize this new mandate to deter foreign threats and focus solely on the CCP? No, absolutely not. Or should we anticipate that every weapon added to their arsenal is a threat to the free speech rights of everyday Americans? History repeats itself. Republicans and Democrats want power. The government wants power. And it does. And they take every opportunity they get, and it's always for your own good. It's always for your own good. It's for your own good, guys. It's for your own good. We don't want TikTok infecting your kids with, dance numbers and viral memes and shit. So yeah, this is for your own good. We're going to spy on you. And this bill isn't about banning TikTok. It's never about what they say it is. Fox News host Tucker Carlson, oh my God, Tucker Carlson told the Daily Caller he'll be booted off the air if they do this. Instead, this bill would give enormous and terrifying new powers to the federal government to punish American citizens and regulate how they communicate with one another. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. You should be afraid of this. You should be afraid of this. And I knew this was, God, I hate being right. And look, I'm not always right, but I was right. I said too much of the conversation is focused on the content of TikTok. And if they take issue with the content on TikTok, they're going to start taking issue with the content on every other social media platform. And a lot of the grievances that they have aren't focused on the security concerns. Like I want somebody to say, hey, shut the hell up and just focus on the security of the app because that's the issue at hand, not the content of the app. And they kept going on about the content. I'm like, they're case building. They're case building to be able to ban social media, to restrict social media. That's what they want. This is not an effort to push back against China. It's part of a strategy to make America much more like China, with a government in charge of what you read and see, with terrifying punitive powers at their fingertips. He continues. So it's coming from Tucker Carlson. So there are going to be people, I guarantee you, on the left that are going to be like, it must be good then. If Tucker Carlson's against it, it must be good. Let me remind you, this is a bipartisan effort to censor the internet. Okay, this isn't about, I mean, at this point, it's like you need to stop taking sides. It's not one side of the aisle or the other side of the aisle. This is the government wants to limit your freedom of speech on the internet, on social media. You need to get the fuck over it. If it comes from Tucker Carlson or it comes from AOC, they're both saying the same thing, kind of, aren't they? They're kind of both agreeing on this one, that this might not be such a good thing. Now, in AOC's case, she's against it because she doesn't want to lose voters, because they're like, well, Democrats are going to lose voters if, you're going to lose voters if this Democratic bill gets pushed through and you censor the shit out of the internet. You think a TikTok ban is bad? You censor the internet completely and it was on the Democrats' watch? You're going to lose voters. God, this is so much bigger. It's so much bigger than Republican and Democrat. We've seen this before from national security state again and again, confronted with a foreign adversary. After 9/11, the federal government used the opportunity to expand their police powers over the American population. Absolutely. Have you not seen the Star Wars prequel trilogy? It's literally that. Oh my God, there's a crisis. The separatists are causing problems. Well, we better just beef up the army and let's just reorganize as an empire so this doesn't happen again. Come on, you guys all watch Star Wars. You listen to us bitch about Star Wars. We're living it. We're living it right now. Okay? Rand Paul makes similar points in a Courier Journal op-ed today. Before banning TikTok, these censors might want to discover that China's government already bans TikTok. Do we really want to emulate China's speech bans? TikTok must be banned, but the censors say, because they are owned and controlled by the Chinese Communist government. Does TikTok do the Chinese government's bidding? Well, go to the app and search for the Falun Gong, the anti-communist religious sect. Go to TikTok and search for videos about Taiwan's independence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the same thing's going to happen here. You're not going to be able to criticize the government. You're not going to be able to have any doubts about election results or any of that shit. States consider mandatory anti-porn filters. Oh my God. So here we go. This is coming from, Geeky sent this over, Dr. Linfin Durella. Everyone needs to hear about the Restrict Act. The bill is also currently known as the TikTok ban. It looks as though we were all deceived. The TikTok ban is nothing but a distraction while they try to push the Restrict Act into law. I could have told you that. Again, I worked for years very closely with the government. Okay. Not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the sordid past of Mr. Neon, but I did work in and around the government and I did see some shit. And my boss was literally a senator. And I can tell you the government sneaks shit through every day and we are completely oblivious to it. Hell, people working in the government don't even know if things are being passed into law. There's so many damn laws every day, volumes and volumes and volumes of new laws being passed or floated, bills being floated every day, and you only hear about a percentage of it. If this bill gets passed, we lose almost all privacy we have. The attached screenshot is a highlight of only a few of my concerns with the bill. And this is talking about VPNs. Users would now be at the government's disposal to review. Let's see here. Users, so services with over 1 million users would be at the government's disposal to review, prosecute, and take possession of stuff of data. Now, we don't have to worry about that on clownshishtv.com. So there we go. They can review any and all of your personal information without even notifying you. They're doing so. They can ban any game, app, or anything they deem fit if it poses a risk. The Restrict Act would also allow the government to access all the data on your video devices if it's a service that uses over 1 million people. This includes Ring doorbells, in-home security cameras, and so much more. A VPN won't help you. If caught using a VPN, you'll face up to 20 years in prison and or $1 million in fines. We need to bring attention to this and tell our elected officials we do not support the Restrict Act. Yeah, I mean this is serious, guys. This is some deep shit. So I'm going to put a link to the act. Here it is, warner.senate.gov public. Here it is, and you can read it for yourself. It's some ridiculous bullshit. And if they don't get this through, they'll just try something else, because the end goal is always to have the government control the internet. That's what they want. That's what this is all about, at the end of the day. And again, I do believe TikTok does pose a legit security threat, but this ban is a Trojan horse, in my opinion. And it looks like my opinion is correct. It looks like I was correct when I brought this up. When I watched this, I'm like, yep, I see exactly what's going on. So I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later. Help support the channel. Go to thereef.support and get early access to podcasts, videos, and other content. That's thereef.support.